It's like taking your website and then injecting steroids into it. It just speeds up the process.
Most businesses are getting screwed by SEO agencies. They overcharge, underdeliver, and they keep you locked in contracts while your competitors take all the traffic.
A lot of marketing agencies that are like, oh, we'll learn SEO, instantly go to like Fiverr, Upwork, and just start buying links. If you're on Fiverr, Upwork, it's likely a link farm.
But Andrew Rohm knows exactly how to fix this. He's an SEO expert cutting through the bullshit and exposing the biggest scams in digital marketing.
They have what's called a spam index, essentially. If you go onto a website and it's just a ton of ads, that's likely a spammy site, and they're just there for making money.
And showing you how to rank, drive traffic, and make money.
If you really want to rank well, you really want to be on page one, you need to...
If your business isn't ranking, it is invisible. And if you don't listen to this episode, you're going to stay that way.
If done properly, for like $500 a month, you can rank one.
Everybody wants to rank number one on page one of Google. But there can only be one number one, there can only be 10 on page one. How do you fight these people?
I don't even think you fight them. I think you go for a different niche within it. So you go for what are called long tail keywords.
All I ever hear about SEO is if you've got great content and you've got great backlinks, that's your SEO thing, solved.
I think buying backlinks isn't a necessity, but it sure helps.
So where does SEO fit into the overall digital marketing landscape?
Start with your Google My Business listing. The backlink equivalent for Google My Business listing is citations. So if you're doing both at the same time, you're also optimizing for AI.
Guys, Matt Haycox here, and welcome to another episode of No Bollocks with me, Matt Haycox, where we get a subject matter expert, a fantastically talented guest, and we're all the way over here in Bali, and he's all the way in Bali from Wisconsin. Andrew Rohn's in the house to talk, as his t-shirt gives away if you're watching this on YouTube, talk SEO, so search engine optimization. I'm sure we're going to veer off into a bit of digital marketing, PPC, and some other things, and see how it all fits in the ecosystem. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. I always say that I talk very often about the importance of how every business owner must learn every single aspect of the business. Maybe not enough to be able to replace the people, but certainly enough to make sure they're not getting the pants pulled down by anyone. And SEO, digital marketing, I think is one of those areas where you just get fucked by agencies. It's a bit of a black art, or it can be a black art. And it's very easy to bullshit people, sign people up for a 12-month contract, promising no results until month 13, and hopefully Andrew's going to be here to put that knowledge on for us, so that we don't fall prey to the naughty SEO agencies, and we might even be able to do some of it ourselves as well. So Andrew, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Just before we get into SEO, we were just talking before we got on camera about how you ended up in Bali for this, and how I ended up at the event where I met you for this. And I just think, whilst it's got nothing to do with SEO, nothing to do with digital marketing, it's just an important lesson in the power, or not the power, but the importance of saying yes and of grasping opportunities. So I think obviously my story for being here in Bali was that I did a podcast with a guy a few weeks ago. The only reason I even did the podcast was because I saw some of his content. I didn't know him. I reached out to him, thought he'd be great to have on the show. I then saw him on another podcast with a guy in Bali. I thought, well, I'm going to Bali. What's that guy all about? He was doing a mastermind. So I reached out, and the guy said, yeah, I'm doing a podcast mastermind. So I was like, fuck it, I'm doing nothing else at the weekend, why not? And that kind of butterfly effect of seeing this guy's name in a newsletter, watching his content, having the whatever, let's say boldness. I don't see it as particularly bold, but I know a lot of people who don't DM people because they're scared to, if you like, would see it as very bold. But reached out to him. He happened to say yes. That knocked me onto the podcast. That knocked me onto the Bali guy. And then in the event here in Bali, I met you. We're sat here doing this. Who knows where that will lead? And that is just the 8 or 9 part butterfly effect of my side of it. I know you're in the mastermind, or you're in the kind of incubator of the podcast guy that we met with. And I think you said he rang you about a week or so ago, a few nights before the event itself, and said, why don't you jump on a plane? And jumping on a plane from Wisconsin to Bali is not like jumping on a plane from London to Spain. And you were just telling me that you're now thinking about moving out here as well. So none of this stuff would have happened to either of us had we not just, not overcomplicated it and just gone with the flow.
Yeah, I just gotta ship it sometimes. That's one of the fun things of like week before he rang me, gave me a message, said, "Hey, come on over," and I'm like, "Yeah, let me see if I can figure out plane tickets." And it's what, a 2-day trip, give or take.
2 days.
2 days. It's 36 hours or 40 hours, depending on what flights you get.
And how many flights was that?
3.
Is that the shortest you can do as well, or is that just the most economical?
Yeah.
You can't do it any shorter.
You
than
can't do it any shorter unless you go private.
Right.
Because you can't fly directly into Bali from the US.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I came from Dubai, and that was 9.5 hours. So I mean, it's a single flight. It's clean, but still 9.5 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, we're not here to talk about travel plans. We're here to talk about SEO. How long have you been in the SEO game?
I've been doing SEO for quite a while. I'd say I started on websites probably around 14, so 6 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say started websites, what, building websites?
Building websites, and then just somewhere along the lines, I kind of got into SEO. How do we optimize? How do we build it so that it shows up? Like somewhere along there, I'm not entirely sure where. So probably SEO specifically around 3 or 4 years.
And is SEO something that people need to be doing from, not just from when they first get a website, but from even the pre-planning of that website? You know, if someone's about to say, right, I'm either redoing my website, or I'm starting a new business. You know, I don't know, I'm starting a podcast studio in Bali, and I need a website for it. Should they be considering SEO at that pre-implementation stage as well?
I would say yes. So with SEO, one of the biggest things is structure. So when you're building a website, you need to understand how the website is structured so that Google, I like to say, likes it, right? You kind of have to spoon feed Google. You have to tell it, hey, like, this is where this goes, this is where this goes, compartmentalize it. And so when you're building the website, you need to understand the SEO structure. Even if you're not going to do any SEO for a year or 2 years, just having that structure makes a world of difference.
And look, I don't want to get, let's say, too technical too early for the for the people who might who might already be glazing over at what we're talking about. But when we talk about structure, we're talking about things like forward slash like directories and certain areas of the domain where pages are going to live. So that would be, for example, I don't know, if you had a blog, would that be matthaycox.com/blog/article 1, article 2, versus maybe not having that /blog in there, just doing article 1 and 2. And does Google, you talk about spoon feeding it, and I guess it's always better to make anything easier for someone, but does it really need that help?
It should, yes. So one of the weird things with Google is it's really good at discerning, like, what is this about? What is that about? But if you really want to rank well, you really want to be on page 1, you really need to be like Google. This is exactly what I want you to rank me for. You need to tell it. That's why you have an H1 tag and why the H1 tag is so important. So for those who don't know,
tell people what that is.
Yep. So for those who don't know, that's essentially the title tag. On a website, you have what's called an H1 tag, and that's, if you have the title of a blog, that's what that would be. If you have the title of the page, that's what it would be. And so when you tell Google what it is in that title, it makes it so much easier for Google to rank you. And the easier you make for Google to rank you, the more likely you are to show up page 1.
So there's a better or worse way to write that H1, is there? So obviously one of the things we've been learning over the weekend with podcasts is having the perfect title with the perfect thumbnail, which matches with the perfect introduction, and it effectively keeps that congruency all the way along, so that nobody feels misled or shocked at any point. I mean, if this was an article about the best podcast studios in Bali, is the best title for that blog the best podcast studios in Bali, or could there be a better way to write that?
Yeah, I would say yes, with a caveat there. So what I typically do with my writers is say, in some capacity, so typically when you write blogs, you're writing them for a keyword. You're writing for a search intent, which is what people are searching for. So for example, like you would say best like podcast studios in Bali, okay? That would be considered the keyword. And in some way, we want to work that into the title. So you could say top 10 best in Bali, podcast studios in Bali, or our best, right? You don't want to necessarily do exactly the keyword, but you want to work it into the title in some capacity.
And so you've said, I'm picking up on things that you've said, which I think will be good to go deeper on for the audiences. So two things you've said. One is intent. You need to understand the intent of that search query. So from memory, there's kind of 4 different types of intent. Is that right?
Yep. So there's different types of intent, but I'm actually going to back it up a little bit even more, because I think a lot of people switching it into different types of intent makes it a little bit more complicated for them. So I think the best way to go about finding search intent is to straight up just look at the first 5 queries. What are they doing? Because what's ranking is typically what people want.
So just go a little more expansive on what intent means for people who aren't, as in, so why is someone searching for what they're searching? It could be commercial intent to buy something. It could be informative intent if you like to learn more about something. What are the other ones?
Navigational, and I can't remember what the fourth was. I don't really use it, to be honest. But yeah, so navigational in that sense means like you're just searching for something. So I'll give you a good example. In real estate SEO, for example, you have homes for sale. People are looking at that to navigate to find homes for sale. They could also be navigating to buy homes for sale, right? So there's 2 intents there, and you need to understand and discern the differences between those. Or informational, for example, it's just searching what's the solution to X, like best podcast studios in Bali. That would be informational. So yeah, that's really important. But I would say...
But sorry to interrupt on that, but whilst I agree that best podcast studios in Bali would be informational, would it not be realistic to think that people aren't just searching that just for fun, just to know what... I mean they were probably searching that because they want to hire that podcast studio in Bali.
Right. It could be a mix of both.
Right.
It's one of those where it's very subjective, right, what you're looking for in that. And so even sometimes when I look at the keywords on like Ahrefs or a different SEO tool, it'll say like commercial for this, and I'll disagree with that partially. So they're very subjective, and it doesn't matter as much as long as you're fitting the intent of what the person is searching for and you're giving them what they want. Because fundamentally that's what you're trying to go for. I usually skip over that, to be completely honest with you. I just look at what's ranking and how can I use that and better help the user.
Let me hit you with a mad stat. You are probably not subscribed. Seriously, 58% of the people who listen to this podcast every single week do not hit that subscribe button. That is more than half of you. So let's fix this right now. The goal here is super simple. We grow the podcast, we bring in bigger guests, and we give you even more no bullshit, actionable insights to level up your business and to level up your life. Now in business, you set SMART goals. That's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Well, here's one for you. Let's get that 58% down to well below 50% in the next 3 months. So please do me a quick favor. If this podcast has ever given you one good idea, one piece of advice that's helped you or helped your business, then hit that subscribe button. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it means that I can keep bringing you even bigger and better guests, giving you even bigger and better insights. Go on, do it now. I'll wait. Done? Perfect. Great choice. Let's grow this together.
And one of the other things you mentioned was if you want to rank page 1 on Google. Now, I guess that's the that's the magic dream of any SEO client, or the what's the word, the promise of any SEO worker or agency. But I mean, obviously the reality is everybody wants to rank page 1 of Google. Everybody wants to rank number 1 on page 1 of Google, but there can only be one. There can only be one number 1. There can only be 10 on page 1, and I hear more and more now. Oh, this is a competitive industry, or that's a competitive industry. Sometimes almost to the point where people want to talk you out of it. Whereas my view is every industry is competitive now. I mean, certainly any industry you really want to be in is competitive. I mean, I look at the ones I work in. Whether it's finance or property or consultancy, any of these things, they are oversaturated effectively. Where there's already great competitors who've probably been doing SEO for many years, already ranking there. How do you fight these people and not just give in?
I don't even think you fight them, which is like the weirdest thing ever. I think you go for a different niche within it. So you go for what are called long tail keywords, which is more specific, more granular. So again, I typically do real estate, so we'll use that as an example. In any given city, you have homes for sale, houses for sale. Those are the primary keywords. But then you also have condos for sale, townhomes for sale, land for sale. And so if you go for some of the smaller ones, they're going to be less competitive because a lot of the guys who are going for homes for sale, houses for sale, don't want to spend the time on these smaller keywords. So you can start there and then work your way up.
What? Because what you're saying is, let's say, ranking for trailers for trailers for sale is going to be quite easy to do, and then when you've done that, you've already given your website a bit of authority, so you've made it a bit easier to then start to rank for maybe apartments for sale and going up.
Exactly.
So I'm with you on that. However, you mentioned that you work in real estate. So yeah, just for context, guys, Andrew's business is very, very specifically targeting and working with realtors in Wisconsin. So I mean, very, very specific. Not just realtors, but realtors in Wisconsin, which I still imagine there's hundreds of those there to go at. But I guess everybody there wants the same thing as well. And how do you differentiate between those guys? If you've got 50 clients tomorrow who all say, "Well, I'm niche. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm happy to do condos or trailers in Wisconsin." But all of your clients, you've got to kind of do the same thing to all of your clients. So how are you not cannibalizing each other?
I do exclusivity. So if I work with someone in this town, I won't work with anyone with any of the border towns as well.
Okay, but because it's basically not possible to do it without cannibalizing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's very, very difficult. Sometimes, depending on if it's a smaller brokerage and then I have a bigger brokerage, what I'll sometimes say is, hey, listen, I'm working with so-and-so. We're not going to rank 1 with you, but we can rank number 2 next to the bigger brokerage. Because a lot of times that'll fill their lead needs. They just won't get number 1 on that page.
If you read a lot of the SEO blogs, or if you listen to things from, let's say, a less technical, more layman's view, I would say all I ever hear about SEO is, listen, content backlinks. Content. If you've got great content and you've got great backlinks, that's your SEO thing, solved. And if you don't do either of those two things, then you're pissing in the wind.
I'd say that's pretty accurate. I'd say you need good backlinks, but you need good blog posts as well. The one thing that I will say that a lot of people that's contested in the industry is buying backlinks. That's a really fun one. Really interesting conversation there.
Again, just before you tell us it, tell everyone what a backlink is.
So a backlink is, think of it like another website vouching for your website, right? They have what's called link juice, and it's essentially this website over here is passing link juice, which is just them saying, hey, I trust this website. That's all it really is.
Yeah, so basically, guys, I guess it's one site linking to another site, as it says. You've seen it and used it all the time yourselves. When you're looking through a blog post, that blue highlighted bit of text is a link out to somebody else. So that person who's getting linked out to is the recipient of a backlink. So if you're building your website and you want good backlink juice, as Andrew puts it, you want lots of other websites with those little blue hyperlinks pointing towards you.
Yep, exactly. So Google has a policy essentially giving your website what's called domain authority. And that's just how much Google trusts your website. So if other people are vouching for you, it increases trust, right? That's just kind of how it works. And so you want backlinks to vouch for you and then build your trust. But some backlinks, when they vouch for you, hurt your rankings because it's not a trustworthy person. Right? Or trustworthy site.
And is that because it's not trustworthy, or it's specifically untrustworthy? You know what I'm saying there? As in, is it just that no one knows to trust it, or if people, let's say you don't know me, you don't know if you can trust me, but you also don't know anything negative about me either. Whereas, let's say I'm not a trusted source, but I'm not an untrustworthy source yet because I've not done anything to give bad vibes.
I would say it's a full swing. So there's some that are completely untrustworthy that hurt you. The ones that they don't really know if you can trust, I would say they don't hurt you, but the ones that they can trust really help you.
And the ones that they know can't be trusted, why do they know they can't be trusted?
So they have what's called, I don't know if it's in the code exactly, but they have a spam index essentially.
Okay.
And it's like if you go onto a website and it's just a ton of ads, it seems super spammy. That's likely a spammy site, and they're just there for making money. They're not there to help the user. And so that would be considered a bad, untrustworthy site. Because what ends up happening is you get guys who do what are called link farms, and they just do that spammy website essentially, and they just link to hundreds of thousands of domains to help boost rankings.
And why do people still do it then? Because I mean, I've been hearing, and listen, I'm not, okay, I probably know more than the man on the street, but I'm not, the SEO expert. And I've been hearing for years and years about, link farms and bad links and this, that, and the other. But people still seem to be making more and offering them out and buying them.
I think because people just don't know.
Okay.
At least that's my guess. Because a lot of, at least from my experience, a lot of marketing agencies that are like, oh, we'll learn SEO, instantly go to like Fiverr, Upwork, and just start buying links. If you're on Fiverr, Upwork, it's likely a link farm. And so the link farms are still making money, even though they don't necessarily help rankings, because people just don't know.
I mean, are there any good links you can buy, or because again, you hear both. People say, "Oh, if you have to buy for a link, if you have to buy a link, it's a shit link." But then you also see some sources which I think would be credible, like a Forbes or something like that, who, maybe not overtly, but still quite publicly, if you know where to look,
right.
sell their top 10 SEO guys in Wisconsin for 2025 and that kind of stuff.
I think there's a lot of nuance to it. So a good link that we buy a lot as an agency is news networks. A lot of news networks will feature you in articles, but they won't link to you. So you just have to pay to have that link.
Okay.
And so there's a lot where you have to kind of vet the site, really look at it, hammer it in, and make sure it's a quality site before you pay for that link. And a lot of good links, the downside of them is they're expensive. So you really don't want to buy links if you can get them organically.
If you like deep dive conversations, then you are going to love my other podcast, Stripping Off with Matt Haycox, because this is where I sit down with the biggest names in business, entertainment, celebrity, media, politics and beyond to strip back the bullshit, the PR spin and the scripted success and just get to the truth. Who's the person behind the mask? What does it really take to win? No fluff, no filters, just raw, naked truths and the unfiltered stories from those who've truly made it. So go find it wherever you listen to your podcasts or hit the link in the show notes and get stuck in.
How do you quantify the value? And I ask you this from personal experience. So obviously we've got multiple arms of digital marketing or marketing in general within our business. And one of the specific things we're always working on is my personal PR and my brand building. And back in Dubai over the last few months, we've landed some decent pieces of PR in mainstream Dubai publications, and this is not paid PR. This is genuine relationship building with journalists. Pitching them an idea, doing an interview, and they do a piece. And the piece is there, and it'll rank on Google. We'll go and ask for a backlink, and so I don't know if it's a Dubai thing because I've never really had the issue in England. Like if they do the piece, and it's either a yes or no thing. Yes, we'll give you a backlink, or no, we don't do it. Cost never comes into it. In Dubai, they all said, yeah, we'll do a backlink, but you have to pay. And I thought, how much? The prices are fucking wild. Like $3,000. I mean, minimum I remember being like $1,700, $1,800, but $3K and above some of these. And I never did any, not because I have an aversion to paying if it's right, but for me, I just think I'll just accept that the article stays up there, and I'll just take it as a piece of credibility on Google. But if I was prepared to go and spend $3K on a backlink, I think I could probably do better than that, because this wasn't CNN.com. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not like 100 DA or something. It's I mean, how if I'm on that receiving end of these offers from people, how do I quantify what is a price worth paying? Because I guess to tie into that question, you also can't know the exact effect of that backlink, can you? As I mean, you just know you need backlinks, but you don't. I'm trying to think of an analogy. Most of my analogies tend to involve girls. I was going to say, if you want to meet girls, you've got to go to the venue where all the hot girls are. But there is still no guarantee when you walk in that one that the girl you start talking to is a 10 out of 10 that you're going to go and get married to. So how do you know how much to budget, when to draw the line? When do you get pissed off that I've just got 10 backlinks a month for the last 3 months and my site hasn't ranked any better?
So I would say the first thing is you can't quantify it super well until you pay for it, which really sucks. So it's always a certain amount of gambling. right? You're flipping a coin. Is it going to help? Is it not? But there's a couple things that you can look at. So first off, like you mentioned, DA or DR, depending on what you're using. So how authoritative, how trusted is your site on Google or their site on Google? That's one.
Minimum number you need to be going for?
I wouldn't say there's a minimum number. I'd say there's nuance in that. So if you're a really, really low DR, your website is not super trusted, realistically anything above 30 is going to help to any capacity.
Okay.
So there's that. The second one is niche. So are they in your industry? Do they specifically talk to your industry? So let's say you have a site that you're trying to get for digital marketing. If it's a news publication that specifically talks about digital marketing, it's more likely to help you. Okay? Then the other one is location. Where are they based? Where is their traffic coming from? So you can take a look at this. The first thing I would look at is their domain rating, their authority. How authoritative is it? How trusted is it? Second thing is keywords. What are they ranking for? What is the niche of their website? Third thing, where are they getting most of the traffic? So if you're in Dubai, you'd realistically want websites in Dubai that are ranking for Dubai keywords.
You're assuming there that I want Dubai eyeballs on my website?
Correct. So you'd want someone in Dubai, and then the keywords, as long as they're similar, they're in an adjacent vertical to your industry, then it's more likely to be a good bet to buy the backlink. 3,000 is an insane amount for a backlink. I'd say usually if I'm going to buy something, it'd probably be in the hundreds, not the thousands.
But that could still be a great backlink, could it?
Right. It's just a matter of how much are you willing to pay and how many viewers are you going to get from it, right? I look at it not in a monthly viewership. I look at it in a total viewership. So if I'm doing this for a year, how many views am I going to get for that backlink? And I just kind of head math it, if you will.
Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like there's quite a deep research piece that you need to do on each backlink there. It's not just like, okay, that's Fox News, it's got a DA of 86, it's $400, sounds good, let's do it. You do want to go and do all that other stuff you've talked about, yeah? And
yeah, exactly.
Even on that, I know I've given quite an extreme example of something super mainstream there, but even on like a Fox News, or would you even bother researching that because you say, well, it's Fox News, I mean, it's fine.
I would say it depends. So like if it's Fox News, but it's specifically a Fox News in a different area.
In Cincinnati.
Yeah, exactly.
My American geography is terrible. That might be right next to Wisconsin, but that would not benefit you as much as Fox News / Wisconsin.
Exactly.
But it probably wouldn't hurt you either.
It probably won't hurt you, no. I would say the one thing that I would be careful with is if you start ranking for a different area, that can hurt you. Okay. So if you get too many of those Cincinnati links and you start ranking for Cincinnati, realistically no one in Cincinnati is looking up Wisconsin. Right? So you need to have that nuance of, am I ranking too much for this versus this?
And using an extreme example again, just to let's say maybe either hammer home the point or get clear understanding. People always talk about spammy links, Russian link farms, porn, this, that, and the other. Let's take Pornhub or PornTube, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Which would be very mainstream professional sites in that space. If you could have for free a link back from Pornhub, would you want it?
No.
Because it's going to bring.
It's completely out of scope.
Okay.
So, like I said, you want something at least somewhat related to you. Think of it adjacent areas. So if I'm linking for something in Wisconsin, I'd want something in Wisconsin real estate. I'd want something in Wisconsin, or I'd want something real estate related. One of those two.
And what was I was going to go blank.
One of the weird things I'll kind of get on this is so I enjoy researching a bunch of different sites, and I was actually researching how they rank specifically in like the adult industry.
Okay.
Because I can't imagine it's super, super easy to rank, right? There's not that many sites. So I found what's really funny is a lot of these sites will actually get links from different mainstream like commercial stuff like Pizza Hut.
Okay.
Because they sponsor certain events.
Okay.
So like you'll get adult industries sponsoring different things, and even though it's not exactly related, that industry is mainstream enough and there isn't enough competition that it doesn't really hurt them.
Okay. So I I used to have some adult websites many moons ago. I mean, many moons ago. We're talking like 2008, 9, 10 kind of time. So I spent a bit of time in some adult entertainment conferences, which I'm sure was more fun than the usual SEO conference. But they had like a lot of traffic sources there, and what they seem to do is a lot of selling traffic between each other's sites as well. Because I guess, well, it's probably an industry where people maybe aren't loyal to one site, and they like to flick across different ones, and yeah, they'd have people who would be doing pop-ups. If you like, pop-ups on one site that feed people to the other, and there'd just be tremendous amounts of traffic buying.
I suppose I actually wouldn't know. I was just looking at their backlink profiles. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
So, no one wants to admit to it, do they? Last question on backlinks. So, do you have to pay, or can you ultimately, even with hard work, always achieve the same as what you could get with buying? And a bit more context to that. So I used to have a guy who worked for me in SEO quite a long time ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and he used to want to buy a lot of backlinks, which in hindsight turned out there were quite a lot of shit backlinks, really, to be honest, and these were the ones that we wouldn't have had. But one thing he did tell me at the time was that lots of agencies deny buying backlinks because it's kind of like, let's say, frowned upon or makes them look lazy, but really they subcontract the backlink buying part of their business to other agencies so that they can turn a blind eye to the fact that someone's buying backlinks.
I'd say that's pretty common, yes. I think buying backlinks isn't a necessity. I don't think it's a necessity, but it sure helps, because it's like taking your website and then injecting steroids into it, right? It just speeds up the process. Now, of course, you need to make sure that they're good backlinks. You need to vet them a lot. So there's a lot of work that goes into buying backlinks versus just doing it organically, but it sure helps.
So where does SEO fit into the overall digital marketing landscape? So I mean, I guess as a business, you can be looking at SEO, you can be looking at PPC, you can be looking at social media marketing, digital PR, which I guess technically might fall a bit into backlinks as well. All these different places you can put budget. So I guess my two questions are: one, should you be doing them all? And secondly, if budget was an issue, where should you feature SEO? And again, let's flesh that question out a bit more to give some specific context. So look, I've got a website in the property buying industry, and it's a new site, new business, 5 or 6 months old, and we're doing SEO and we're doing PPC. We're spending limited. I mean, if I had to put this into, let's say, monetary amounts of contract, let's say it's probably the equivalent of a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month SEO contract, and we're spending probably a couple of $1,000s a month on PPC, on Google ad spend. All of our leads are coming from PPC. As in, if we didn't have PPC, we wouldn't have a business. But then there's also the view of, if we don't start doing SEO, when we know it takes time to kick in, so if we don't start now, we'll never. So we kind of need to play the two side by side. Where does it all fit in together? And if you are because unless you're a very well funded business, you've received venture capital or whatever, I mean, SEO for so many businesses can just feel like just money down the toilet month after month.
I think you're talking on two prongs as well, and I think there's a third that we can add, specifically for local businesses. So first off, you have PPC. So typically when we say PPC, we'll talk Google ads, right? So that would be purchasing the ad slot at the top when someone searches. 2, you have SEO. That's like organic version of that, right? It's trying to rank organically on Google. And the third, you have your Google My Business listing. And so I would say the first thing that you want to do is actually start with your Google My Business listing. Because if done properly, and you know how to get reviews, for like $500 a month, you can rank 1. And I've seen some, specifically in real estate, get 50 clients out of it every month.
Rank 1 on Google My Business?
On Google My Business.
Right.
And so the other thing with Google is a lot of times that map pack, which is where the Google My Business is, shows up first, depending on what you're searching for. So that's the easiest one. That's the cheapest. I would say start there because you're going to get higher returns faster on SEO. PPC is really good for getting it right away, but as soon as you cut it, you're out of leads, right? As soon as you cut the ad spend. Yep. Whereas SEO is really, really slow, but then it just hits. As soon as you start ranking 1, you're like, holy fuck, that's a lot of leads. So you have to kind of give SEO some time. And to be completely frank, you need to be seeing results from your SEO guy. You need to be like, okay, we got this backlink, we did this, we increased the DR here, we're slowly moving up rankings. But it's not like you're going to get a ton of traffic until you're on that first page. Yeah. So there's definitely a window there that you need to be careful of.
And that's the problem, I guess. I guess that's probably a reason as well why SEO can get a bad name if you want to be looking at it from a negative slant, because it's a very easy business to give improving metrics to a client. And they can say, well, look, we took your account on and we've got you from a 10 DA to a 30 DA, or we got you these backlinks last week, or look, you had 0 traffic when you started, you now have 15,000 visitors a month, or whatever it is. All of this is lovely, but none of that is leads. Mm-hmm. If you, and what's the expression of, the best place to hide a body's on page 2 of Google. And that is the thing, isn't it? That, if you're not on page 1, and never mind page 1, if you're not really on the top 3 of page 1, you are just pissing in the wind. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult as a business owner to know when to draw the line, when to pull the plug, or if you're being blagged.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult. And I would say, since I'm more on the local side, I would say we don't even look at DR or DA that much. What we mostly look at is the keywords improving. So are the keywords moving up in rankings every week? And the other thing that I've been doing to mitigate that is I do pay per lead SEO, which is really, really terrible for me until I get those results. So what ends up happening is they go, oh, okay, this is SEO that actually generates leads, that actually generates revenue, versus someone going like, oh, here's like my contract for so much every month to do SEO, and then they just get you a bunch of fluff traffic.
So is that's your only pricing model, pay per lead?
Yeah, so I do pay per lead to start, and then I transition them to a monthly.
Okay.
So the reason I do that is because eventually the pay per lead gets so high with the SEO, it's just unbearable for the business.
Yeah.
So what I do is I go, okay, so this is about where we kind of need to switch you over, and we'll just switch you over onto like a year contract.
I know local's your thing, but what's your views on Wikipedia, for example? It's an interesting one because I recently got a Wikipedia page, maybe in the last month or 2 months. And it's probably something I've been after for about 5 years, because that was always seen as a super quick, let's say a quick win, not a quick win to get it, but once you've got it, Wikipedia always ranks number 1 on Google, but not anymore. Mm-hmm. It seems. Listen, it's still up there high, but I think the last 12 months, certainly from a layman's perspective, the kind of landscape of Google and SEO in general has changed. I'm sure, obviously, from an industry perspective, you'll have a more detailed and technical view than I will, but I think Google used to be like 95% of searches or something, and it's still huge, but it's like 70% plus or something now, and there's all the AI searches that are coming in, which again I know from a personal perspective that depending on what my query is, I will go straight to ChatGPT as opposed to to doing it on Google. Just even this morning, I think I told you I've got a podcast after this. And I didn't know the guest, so in the old days I would Google his name, Google all kinds of derivatives of his name with other things to try and find articles to piece things together. Now I just immediately go to ChatGPT and say, I'm doing a podcast with Joe Blogs, please do me a research material on him, please produce me questions, etc. And I must bypass Google 30-40% of my searches.
Yeah, it's just a new thing to optimize for. And I honestly think that's where most SEOs are completely dropping the ball. That's one of the biggest advantages that we have as an agency is I have one guy where half his time is dedicated to just learning that. That's his entire job.
And when you say learning it, what are the differences? Because from the kind of research I do on it would appear that the underlying principles are still the same. That effectively, when someone's asking ChatGPT or whatever system you want to use a question, that is then going out to the web to find the information anyway. So in a way, it's not so much that the logic behind the SEO has changed, because you still need to do a great ranking site that would rank on Google, because ChatGPT would just be going to Google to find it.
So there's actually a couple caveats there. One, depending on what you use, it's actually Bing, not Google. Because I forget who is, but people keep getting partnerships with Microsoft for some reason. So Bing is becoming the search engine for AI, which is just a pain. So now you have to optimize for Bing, you have to optimize for Google, and then on top of that, you need to make sure that content is technical in such a way that AI goes, oh, this is useful. So the easiest way that you can do that is quotes, okay? Statistics. If you do one of those two, you're more likely to rank on those. And it can't be like a statistic that everyone else is using. It can't be a quote that everyone else is using. You have to get something unique. And so that's why when I'm writing articles now, a lot of times I will ask all of my realtors to give me quotes. So I have a quote bank from them that we can just use in different articles. Two, it checks, are you familiar with what a citation is?
Yeah, like the reference effectively to something.
Yep,
yeah.
effectively. So it also looks at that. So you want a lot of citations. So that's another advantage of your Google My Business listing, is the backlink equivalent for Google My Business listing is citations. So if you're doing both at the same time, you're also optimizing for AI.
Okay. You mentioned you need to optimize for Google and for Bing. I mean, what are some of the general principles of the difference between the two? Like, again, as a layman, I would imagine it's both the same. I mean, what gets you number one on Bing compared to being number one on Google?
It's effectively the same. I would say the one thing about Bing is it's a wild card. It's a little bit of a wild west. So, from my understanding, Bing is a little bit heavier on backlinks, and Google is a bit heavier on intent. So, just by having a higher DR, you're more likely to rank on Bing.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your business then. So you specifically do local SEO. Why did you choose that?
So part of the reason being is we have to back up a little bit. When I was starting my business, I was just doing websites for people in Wisconsin.
Creating the website, building a website.
And so I found that then we could add the SEO on top of it as just kind of an upsell. And so that's kind of what I started doing. And so just because they're local websites, I got into local SEO instead of like general SEO. And so that's kind of the reason I'm in local. But then I got into real estate because I found that no one in real estate tends to do SEO, at least in Wisconsin. So I have no competition. So I just stuck in real estate.
And do you think ultimately you'll grow to non-local SEO? And would that be a completely different area, or would it also benefit the clients that you've already got?
I would say keep it local, because local is really where they're going to get the most qualified leads. And so it's the highest leverage point for them versus going national.
So I guess in closing for this, for anyone listening who has a website, who operates a local business, because we're talking real estate, but so many businesses fall under the local category. Whether you're in retail, whether you're a bakery, whatever you're doing locally, if your client base is in your locale, in your inside geography, then I guess that falls into the fact that it's local SEO that you're going to benefit from. If someone was to walk away from listening to this podcast and maybe not quite ready to hire yourself or hire a local SEO specialist just yet, but go and implement 2 or 3 things themselves immediately on their website, what could they do to get some immediate benefit?
Mention your location. I see so many people, or in various industries, just mention their service on their website, but they don't mention where they offer the service. It's just a secondary thing. They just assume that people know that. And so I think adding your address, saying we do plumbing for X city, right? Adding those little things make a world of difference.
I think I can probably answer that myself as well, as to why local businesses may often do that, because I know I've historically thought, oh, okay, it might be a local business. I might want to, most of my customers may all come from Leeds or from Wisconsin or wherever it is, but the website's there for the big wide world, and it makes me feel more special and more important that that we're a global business. But I think it's an ego mistake that's pointless. That then ultimately, like you say, has the adverse effect. And if all your traffic is going to be local, fine, yes, the website can be seen by anywhere in the world, but the reality is most of the people looking at it are going to be local. So
Exactly.
hammer those local points home.
Exactly. And I would even say, on top of that, optimize your Google business listing. I literally just created a lead magnet for that. So if anyone wants it, it's free. It's a 30-minute course. But that's super easy. It's super high leverage. Very few people do it. And once it's set up, it's like 15 minutes of work every week. So I would say even make those adjustments on your website, right? Add the location, and then add your Google My Business listing on top of it. And you'll be like 60% on the way there.
Well, listen, Andrew, it's been a pleasure listening to you, buddy. Thanks for all the top tips. I like these. I like these podcasts, particularly myself, because it gets me the chance to ask all the questions that I really want to know. But hopefully we've answered them in a way that's benefiting to everyone that's listening. We'll put your lead magnet and any of the other bits and bobs in the show notes, and look forward to talking to you again more soon.
Likewise, mate. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to No Bollocks with Matt Haycox. Today's conversation was packed with actionable insights, and I'm super grateful that you joined us. Now, our community now boasts 160,000 downloads a month of this podcast, and that is a testament to entrepreneurs just like you who refuse to settle for mediocrity. So don't miss out. Subscribe now and gain exclusive access to the conversations that can transform your business and transform your life. Also, while you're at it, if you could visit www.matt-haycox.com or click the link in the show notes below, and please sign up to the No Bollocks newsletter. That's like the sister newsletter that lives with this podcast. Every week, I send 2 emails, and in just 10 minutes, you're going to gain more knowledge than most people do in a 3-year MBA. So please subscribe, rate, share this episode with someone who needs a No Bollocks boost. And until next time, keep hustling and keep winning.